This story, while the rest of the country is already wrecked by rolling blackouts, the eThekwini municipality remains unaffected by Eskom's failures to keep the country's lights on. According to officials, eThekwini will only start bearing the brunt from a month from now. eNCA senior reporter Dessen Thathia is tracking these developments. Let's cross over to him for the latest. Dessen, give us some of the reasons why eThekwini is being exempted from load shedding.
Well, Maseko, eThekwini municipality and Maxwell Mthembu in particular, the head of electricity there, says that he doesn't like that word exempted, but in effect that's what it has been. But it's just the reasons behind it that's in question here. We know that the city was hit badly by the floods, so a lot of the infrastructure was damaged. In fact, so much so that immediately after the floods in April, the city lost almost half its current generating capacity. So that's about between 700 and 800 megawatts. And since then, it's managed to get some of that back, but there is still a significant shortfall, I believe about 200 megawatts currently. So the infrastructure is still damaged, it's still very fragile and sensitive, and as a result of that, any major changes to that could have detrimental effects for this particular grid here in the city. So during that conversation with Maxwell Mthembu, he did explain some of these reasons. Let's listen into what he had to say about why eThekwini has not really been affected until now.
We are not actually exempted from load shedding. We had a disaster in eThekwini in April. So that disaster actually never came to an end. By the time we're trying to survive and come out of it, another one hit us in May. So that means we had two disasters coming in eThekwini. Now we lost between 700 and 800 megawatts of power at the time. That's where we're trying to survive or recover from up to now. As of today, we still don't have more than 200 megawatts of power. If we compare June or July as last year at this time. So we lost more than 200 megawatts. If we look at the 200 megawatts, it is an equivalent of what load shedding is today. That means that since April flooding, we have been actually on a severe load shedding compared to anybody else in the country. Yes, it's true that we look like we're exempted, but like you're saying, you're not using the word exempted because we're not exempted. The issue is that we've written a letter to National Control and to Eskom explaining our situation. And we agreed with both National Control and Eskom that we are going to be out of load shedding for now. And actually, we're busy now with the schedule because we are also concerned that we cannot, as eThekwini, not participate in load shedding just to avoid the collapse of the national grid. We are going to participate in load shedding.
So load shedding is clearly our reality in South Africa, Dessen, but will eThekwini ever experience it?
We will, and that will be fairly soon, but this will be under very specific conditions. And by about the 15th of July, that's when residents here will have an idea of what that schedule will look like. It won't necessarily look like yours there in Gauteng. It'll be slightly different to that, and this will be to accommodate things like, for example, the current water situation that we have here. Some of those pumps rely on electricity that, as we understand it, will be ring fenced. They will be allowed, those pumps will not be affected, those won't be compromised, and even the stages, the various stages will look slightly different. So by the 15th of July, that's when we'll get a clearer indication. Let's listen to what Maxwell Mthembu had to say again. He expects all of this to start by about the 1st of August.
A lot of our substations actually bypassed a lot of protection. That means we cannot actually physically and in any way do load shedding. Now we have to look at other substations that are now limited in number, where we can now start to do a new schedule of load shedding, which we are busy compiling. We believe that by the 15th of July we should be done, and we're aiming, if things go well, that on the 1st of August we're going to start participating with a particular way of load shedding, just to make sure that as much as we're struggling as we are, but we also participate in helping the national grid in South Africa. What we're going to do, we're going to assess the situation as and when we do load shedding. If and when we see that there is any damage happening in our infrastructure, we're going to communicate with National Control immediately and Eskom. We've got an open engagement with them. So we even put a statement together with Eskom and National Control to say this is how we're going to be dealing with the matters. Every month we're going to be meeting and assessing our situation. But should there be any damage happening in our infrastructure while we do load shedding, we're going to call each other. We're going to make a decision as and when that happens.
And the infrastructure, Dessen, that was damaged during those deadly floods, has the repair of that started? How long is that going to take?
Look, fortunately, that did get underway, and it happened quite instantly after the flooding, after those assessments were done. And this was critical because that and the water infrastructure, I mean, those were key things that needed to be resolved in the aftermath of the floods. But it's going to take a long time. I mean, at this point, we're estimating about 3 years, and that runs into millions of rands. I guess the silver lining here is that Mthembu tells us that there is a budget that has been set aside to deal with this. Here, once again, he explains.
There are substations that are going to totally exclude on load shedding because we cannot do load shedding in any way. Those are just temporary substations like Maranridge. So the people in Maranridge who suffered for 3 weeks or so without power now are not going to experience load shedding at all for the next 3 years because they have to redo the entire substations. But it's not the only one. I'm just mentioning that because it was the most severe one where we, after all the flooding that took place, we also had the substation getting bent down to ashes. So we're now going to be rebuilding from scratch. In eThekwini alone, we're looking at about 3 years because to fix a substation, that's how much time we need to build. We're like rebuilding our substations anew. Of course, there are existing some of them, but we bypassed is extremely compromised. So we need about 3 years. And the good news is that eThekwini did give us a budget. Our councillors or our council did give us the budget. We're starting now in just of July. We're starting now to go and get the procurement for such, and we're going to be rebuilding these substations. There's a lot of them.
All right, senior reporter Destin Thathia in Durban for us. Let's leave it there for now.